Imagine standing on top of a cliff, and there you can see an astonishing view of the city that you don't want to forget. How would you capture this moment? Would it be something like this? Or this? Some of you might think that both images are similar. However, if you look closely, the compositions of the picture vary. So what's the difference? The picture to the left applies the concept of a phi grid, while the one on the right utilizes the rule of thirds. Actually, both concepts are acceptable, but it has been a debate ever since the dawn of photography whether one is better than the other. So what are we waiting for? Join me as we figure out which composition is better. These two rules in photography are not that difficult to understand. Basically, the rule of thirds, also known as the rule of thumb, is a guideline that divides an image into 9 equal parts. The idea is that the focus or the subject of the photograph should be placed along these lines or the intersection to create more tension than simply centering the subject. Here we can see in the photo on the right makes use of the rule of thirds in a correct manner. This concept has been accepted and applied by photographers and even filmmakers over the past years. However, as time goes by, present-day photographers and filmmakers turn their backs on this universally accepted dimension and shift to the use of phi grid. The major difference between the two is the division of the lines. While the rule of thirds is divided equally, the phi grid divides its lines by utilizing the concept of the golden ratio. Now, how is this done and what is the golden ratio? The golden ratio, also known as the golden section, golden mean, or the divine proportion, is a special number represented by the letter phi from the Greek alphabet. Similar to pi, phi is an irrational number approximated to 1.618. The origin of this complex number is based on a line that is divided into 2 unequal parts. When we divide the longer part, A, to the shorter one, B, it will be equal to the sum of A and B, divided by the longer segment. If you try this at home, you would also determine that both numbers will be equal to the golden ratio. Not so sure if you find any beauty in those lines? Take a look at the concept of a golden rectangle. If you follow the formula in the past slide, you will still get 1.618. Amazing, right? The golden rectangle can be replicated numerous times through the Fibonacci sequence. If you draw a square of size 1 and successively build on new rooms whose sizes correspond to the Fibonacci sequence, you would acquire something that looks like this. Here comes the fun part. By drawing a spiral, starting in one corner and ending in the opposite one, we'll create the first curve of the Fibonacci sequence, also known as the golden spiral. This spiral is the main basis of several paintings, architecture, and the golden ratio rule in photography. In the golden spiral, photographers place the subject of the image to the smallest box in the coil. In fact, it does not have to be in one of the corners, and it can be anywhere in the frame. This spiral helps to lead the viewers to the subject of the photo in a more natural way. However, it may seem very complicated to use, especially for amateur photographers. This is why people mirror the spiral to the other side, creating the phi grid. This grid is an alternative for the rule of thirds, which divides the frame into a ratio of 1.618 to 1. Numerous people claim that the phi grid is a better choice, especially for landscape photography, given that it produces a more balanced image and it is more aesthetically pleasing. Take a look at this image of a surfer. What composition do you think is utilized in this image? Actually, both the phi grid and the rule of thirds are a part of this image. However, if you take a closer look, some elements contradict the rule of thirds. If only the surfer on the top right corner is present in the photograph, it makes use of the rule of thirds. But the presence of the surfer at the bottom makes it contradict the said rule, following the golden spiral. These small details can create significant alterations in your images, which can make it look better. In here, the surfer adds a sense of balance in the picture that leads the eyes to the subject, which is the person near the smallest point of the spiral. An example of a photographer who particularly discerns these details is Henry Cartier-Bresson. Henry captured the ordinary scenes of life using the concept of the golden ratio. Here are some of the photographs he captured with the template of the figure and golden spiral embedded on each image. I'm sure after seeing these images, you might want to try using the golden ratio in photography yourselves. Applying the phi grid may look incredibly difficult. So here are some simple steps you can do to use the phi grid accurately. Step 1. Place your subject at the intersection of the lines. Similar to the rule of thirds, placing the subject at the intersection of the lines will help create a more aesthetically pleasing image. Step 2. Place strong lines on the golden ratio. This means that we place the evident lines on an image to the grid lines. Notice how the railings of the bridge is aligned to the phi grid. The golden ratio is a tool in creating more aesthetically pleasing images. Keeping these two simple steps in mind, all of us can capture sceneries, objects, and portraits in a more pleasing way. Personally, I think that the phi grid is a better choice in capturing sceneries through landscape photography. It gives a sense of balance in an image and gives off a natural look which captures the attention of the viewers. How about you? Now that you learned a lot of the compositions in photography and the concept of the golden ratio, which composition do you think is better?